Assalamualaikum dan selamat petang kepada rakan ITBM, kepada pengikut setia Pesta Buku Antarabangsa Kuala Lumpur secara dalam talian at Shopee pada tahun ini 2021. Dan untuk makluman semua, Pesta Buku Antarabangsa Kuala Lumpur secara Pesta Buku Kuala Lumpur online 2021 at Shopee bermula pada 19 hari bulan Mac sehingga 4 April 2021, dan hari ini adalah hari yang terakhir untuk pesta buku ini, dan kami ITBM sebelaku jawatankuasa aktiviti Pesta Buku Antarabangsa Kuala Lumpur secara dalam talian berterima kasih kepada pihak University Bookstore Malaysia UBSM kerana memenuhi aktiviti sempena pesta buku ini untuk petang ini ya. Mohon kepada semua untuk kongsikan stream langsung ini kepada rakan-rakan untuk memeriahkan lagi untuk memeriahkan lagi Zoom conference kita pada petang ini yang dibawakan untuk anda semua. Okey, tanpa membuang masa, saya akan menyerahkan sesi ini kepada pihak UBSM selaku sponsor bagi stream langsung pada petang ini, dan dipersilakan kepada Mr. Kit Tong.
Alright, thank you very much, Tuan Izam from ITBM. A very good afternoon to the participants and friends of the Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair 2021. Now, due to the pandemic, this is the second year that we are growing our international book fair online, actually. So the things that last year we have, we did the first one very successfully, and this is our second year. And the sales and the response is really, really tremendous. And we are actually very lucky and blessed to have you guys here to share with us today, which makes it a truly international event. Normally, we have speakers from all over the world flying in. We would have flown you in and put you in a nice, fancy hotel, but apologies, we have to do online this time. Maybe when the borders are open, next year you may come and do the speaking live here, all right? Now, this event is actually organized by the MBKM, or the Majelis Buku Kebangsaan Malaysia. In English, it's known as the Malaysian Book Development Council, which is part of the Ministry of Education, alongside with the book industry players. We call the industry's players as MBIC, Malaysia Book Industry Chambers, which comprises all the booksellers, all the publishers, importer, exporters, as well as university presses. Other governments agencies who are partnered with this Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair are the National Translation Board, which is the ITBM. We also have Kota Buku, which is the Book City. And for your information, Malaysia is chosen as the 2020-2021 World Book Capital. So it's a big honor for us being chosen by UNESCO. And after April, we'll hand over to Georgia, who will be the new World Book Capital. Right, and of course, the other partners with the National Library Board of Malaysia, or Perpustakaan Nasional Malaysia, as well as the Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka, our national language guardian. Okay, now today's highlights would be our international public lecture on stress busting in the 21st century. This lecture is brought to you by UBSM, University Bookstore Malaysia, one of the pioneer bookstore in Malaysia, established in 1958. We are 63 years old now. And the Financial Times, the business unit of Pearson, which is the largest publisher in the world, all right? So thank you so much. We are so blessed to have Dr. Audrey Tang and a team of experts all the way sharing with us from the UK and doing this public lecture on a pro bono basis. Thank you, thank you. It will cost us thousands of dollars if we were to pay you. Okay. Now, participants who need a cert of attendance, those of you who have registered, we will issue a cert. If not, you can actually just drop a note to our Facebook or website, and we can make an arrangement for a certificate for you. Now, this session will be recorded and later will be broadcasted in our Facebook channel as well as our YouTube channel, all right? Because I believe this will bless many. Okay, without further ado, I would like to hand over this session to our Master of Ceremony, okay, Miss Elsa Arnold, who herself is a well-being champion. So let's welcome Elsa. Elsa, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Elsa, and I'm really honoured to have been asked to introduce this brilliant event. For me, promoting positive health and well-being is extremely important. I think, particularly after such a challenging year, it's really crucial for us all to be able to build our own tools and resources to care for ourselves and manage our own well-being. So I'm really excited to be here. And having just finished the Leader's Guide to Resilience, I'm probably just as excited as all of you to hear more from Audrey and all of the amazing guest speakers. So our first speaker is John Goldwyn, and John is the Senior Vice President and Director of Master Planning and Landscape at the WATG. He is also the writer of the foreword in the Leader's Guide to Resilience. The WATG are the designers of Dubai's Atlantis, the Venetian in Las Vegas, and London's Claridge's, and their focus is not just on designing the outer beauty admired by the world, but ensuring that it is a reflection of the strength of the communities it's engaging with. While John literally builds resilience from the ground up, he will explain how, even without that foundation, we can still retrofit inner strength and acceptance to enhance the beauty of our outer life. So I will hand over to John.
Thank you very much, Elsa. What an amazing introduction. I'm not sure that's really me, but thank you very much. Selamat tinggal hari, as I should say to everyone. I'm really delighted to be here from London. So yeah, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm an urban designer. And who am I to talk about stress busting and all these issues that we face? And more importantly, why on earth did Audrey ask me to write the introduction to her book? Well, I guess basically placemaking is my thing. I design places. I design places for people to be. But I'd also like to try and think that I could help people make their lives a little bit better as well. And the place that you are is obviously a huge part of how you feel and your mental health. And I guess to try and fix the whole world, which I think we can all agree is quite messed up, is quite a difficult thing. But maybe we can fix places. Maybe we can fix a lot of places. And then in a way, that's a start to making the world a better place. It's funny. I think that cities are like they're like organisms, and each one of us as an individual is like the immune system, or the blood plasma within that system. And collectively, our mental health and our well-being are sort of related to the places that we inhabit. So this sort of collective consciousness, this collective mental well-being, is something that I think we really can focus on, and we really can fix, and we can make places better as a result of that. So it can move from the individual to the local, and then I guess up to eventually the regional. But taking it back to the local, I think it's really important that we can design certain things into our lives. Not even as designers, we can incorporate things into our lives that help us to feel better, that help us to feel more relaxed and less stressed. For example, for me, it's as simple as a place in my garden, somewhere that's full of plants and full of biophilia, full of nature. And for me, it's a place to just go and be, a place to just go and exist. And I think it's really important to remember that doing nothing is still doing something. To just go and be is such an important thing that we forget. And I would say it's something that can relate to us individually. As I said, that starts to feed up into our communities. And I really must thank and mention Audrey as well at this point. She's such a fabulous and fascinating and dynamic person. She says to me on a fairly regular basis, "Oh, you've inspired me to do something." Now, normally when you say to someone, "Oh, you've inspired me to do something," you've inspired me to take a long walk or jump in the pool and have a swim or something like that. But generally when Audrey says to me, "You've inspired me," it's to write a highly researched PhD level paper on something, or create a new website, or write a book or something like that. And what's even more fascinating is that she does these things simultaneously. it's not like a project at a time. It's a number of projects. So as I said, she has this incredible capacity to embrace things. And I think, again, that inspires me to try and create the things that I've been talking about in this brief introduction. So again, she inspires me not to think about what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it. And thank you, Audrey, for inspiring me for that. So I guess really, I've been encouraged and very happy to have climbed out of my professional silo as a result of collaborating with Audrey. And for that, I thank her very much. And with that, I'll hand over. Thank you very much for having me here. And I'm delighted to have been able to write an introduction to Audrey's book, but also to be at this incredible event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Okay, so our next speaker is Sharon Lawton, and when you read her practical tools featured in the book, you will see why she is an award-winning coach. She is a specialist in childhood resilience and the ways in which we can teach well-being and compassion as the foundation for lifelong success. For her, a resilient child will grow to be a resilient adult, and this is how she does it. I'll pass over to Sharon.
Thank you, Elsa, and thank you, Audrey and Keith, and everybody actually who has been involved in organising this amazing event. It's a great honour to us to be speaking at this event. So yes, that is absolutely right. I have a real passion for empowering young people, and I've been working with young people for 12, 13 years, and in that time I found that actually, you know, giving young people the tools to be able to build resilience is transformational. I do feel that as educators, as parents, as adults, we fundamentally underestimate what young people are able to do if they're given the tools. And I think sometimes, with the best of intentions, certainly in the arena in which I work, well-meaning adults fix it for young people. And so they're not given those tools. So my passion is to work with young people, but also with educators and with parents to coach them to coach their young people. So that actually what we can do is we can bring up a generation of young adults to make a difference to the world. And that starts with me for resilience. So I just wanted to share a couple of tools, one model in particular. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you should be able to see that all okay there. So basically what I'm showing here is my resilience triangle. So when I'm working with educators and with parents, and also with young people themselves, age dependent of course, we start to talk about the fact that we can step into our personal power. Now, often when I talk about personal power, people think about physical strength, but it's not about physical strength. It's about our emotional strength to get our needs met and make choices in our lives. And so that's where this resilience triangle comes in. So if we look at the middle of the triangle, if we think about a tripod is a very stable structure. And if we look in the middle of the triangle, we can represent our feelings, whatever that feeling might be. Now we're talking about resilience, stress busting, building resilience so that we're able to bust that stress, if you like. So to feel resilient, the model that I'm using here is based on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And we look at each side of the triangle. Now, working on each side of the triangle will affect our feelings of resilience in this case. So basically what we focus on, so what we are physically focusing on, the images that surround us every day, the things that we look at, maybe social media. You know, I would challenge you to also sort of reportfully challenge the young people that you are engaged with. You know, what are the accounts that you are following? If those accounts aren't topping you up, filling you up, causing you to feel good, then I would challenge, are they a good account? Are they a good selection of accounts to follow? So it's not just that though, but the actual images that we see, so surrounding ourselves with images that inspire us. You heard John talking about inspiration there, but also how we see ourselves. All of us see ourselves in a particular way. So we can work on that side of the triangle. We can also work on the opposite side, which is all around our thought processes. So the thoughts that we have, and also the words that we use when we talk about ourselves and we talk about our situation. So as a coach, I can tell a lot about a person when I listen, when I actively listen to the way that they talk about themselves and the words that they use. Because if we talk about ourselves in a self-depreciating way, it's really interesting. What we are doing subliminally is saying, I don't actually feel that I'm very good. I don't think much of myself. And so therefore, I don't expect you to think much of me either. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And the bottom of the triangle there is all based on our physiology, our body language, which is linked to the research that Professor Amy Cuddy has done in the University of Harvard. So what I want to do just for these couple of minutes is just to give you one tangible tool from this really big model. You know, we could do a whole presentation just on this model, but I want to concentrate on the thoughts and the words that we actually use. Oh, we're actually in the wrong place. Apologies there, we should be there. So what I want you to have a think about and also listen to when you are around other people, your nearest and dearest, and also maybe those that you educate, is to think about actually, who do you listen to? And I'm talking about that sort of, some of us talk about it as a feeling, some of us might recognize it as a voice in our head, but we have that inner champion and we also have that inner critic. And whom we listen to really makes a difference to our level of resilience. Because we become not only who we surround ourselves with, but who we listen to. And that voice in our head, or that sort of inner feeling, some of us feel it's more kinesthetic, really does make a difference. So when I'm talking to children, for example, and to educators and parents, I tend to sort of look at it like this. So we can have what's called automatic negative thoughts. So you may have heard of the term automatic negative thoughts. When we get a little bit older, it might be referred to as imposter syndrome or limiting beliefs. But when I'm talking to younger people, to teenagers and to primary age children and to their educators and parents, I say, okay, so let's have a think about what those inner thoughts might be. And the automatic negative thoughts create a fantastic acronym of ANTS. Now, all of us, I don't talk a lot in generalizations, but I am going to now. All of us have negative thoughts of some kind. Even the most resilient people have negative thoughts of some kind or another. But the difference between those of us that are flourishing and those perhaps that are really struggling with their resilience is whether they listen to their automatic negative thoughts or some energizing thoughts. Now, negative thoughts, the inner critic, are a little bit what I would say are like bullies. They think it's great fun to trick you. Our negative thoughts lie and they exaggerate. And they get you to believe that maybe horrible things might happen if you do or say or go to a particular place. Or they trick you into thinking that nobody likes you, or that you're no good at a particular topic. But let me tell you, none of that is true, because we can't trust those negative thoughts, our inner critic, because they basically just want us to feel bad. So the first step is to raise awareness of those negative thoughts. So anything that is basically things like has a should word in it. I should, I ought, I must, I can't. Never, always. They are all what I call ant words. It's ant language. And if we went outside onto the street, chances are, if we looked hard enough, we would see a little ant crawling around, and one or two, we might not pay them much attention. But if there's a whole nest of ants, an army of ants, we might be consumed with trying to get rid of them. But the other thing about ants, and I'm sure John will be able to agree with this, is they are incredibly powerful because they can break through tarmac, they can move curbstones. And you think, how can a tiny little creature cause so much destruction? And it's because they're working on mass. And it's the same with our automatic negative thoughts. One or two, we have them. If we catch them, that's fine. We can refrain them. We can ensure they don't get out of control. But if we don't recognize them, what happens is they start to multiply. And before we know it, we have a whole army of ants creating doom and gloom, marching around our heads, being destructive. So what we can start to do is to challenge them when we recognize them, recognize our ants and tell ourselves to stop. I'm going into negative thinking. And then challenge ourselves, talk to ourselves and also to our young people. Okay, so what else could that mean? Am I or are you responding to fact or interpretation of that situation? And where's the evidence that it's actually true? Is it really true? Or have I just assumed that? And that's because we can train really gently, rapportfully, but very positively, our unconscious mind to talk positively and think positively. Because how we speak about ourselves, how we think will determine how others see and also treat us. So very quickly, you might want to have a think about some limiting beliefs or some negative thoughts that perhaps you recognize in yourselves or your student or your child. Now, obviously, I'm not going to ask you to share that because these are our inner thoughts, but maybe take an opportunity to see if any on the screen resonate with you, or alternatively, have a think about ones that perhaps are true for you or for your young person. And maybe just make a note of that for yourself. And even thoughts that start with, or throwaway comments that start with, I am a procrastinator. I am always late. None of that is true. It's our perception of the truth, and we can challenge that. So what we need to do is to refine our inner chatter with what I call pets. So we need to catch our ants and turn them to pets. So I use a lot of acronym and metaphor when I'm working with young people because it really captures their imagination. I get them to draw their ants, their negative thoughts, as if they were an ant or a bully or whatever. And then, right, okay, let's now create our pets, our positive, energizing thoughts that we can tell ourselves when we are feeling that we need that little bit of extra resilience. So on the screen there, you can see some affirmations. We're affirming the negative all of the time, but we can choose to turn that around and affirm the positive. So how would we like others to see us? How would we like others to be talking about us when we're not around? And if we can reframe that and frame that in the positive and in the present tense, it can really make a difference. So I am confident and I trust in myself. I believe in myself. I choose happiness from today. I deeply respect myself. I am calm and peaceful. And again, I would just encourage you to have a think about how you could start with yourself. Because as educators and as parents, yes, our children learn by what we tell them and share with them and how we speak to them. But they also learn by what's modeled to them. So we have to start with ourselves. We have to model this stuff to our young people. It's no good us saying, you need to do this for your resilience. We need to be models of resilience ourselves. So I would challenge you from today to listen to your thoughts, catch those ants and turn them into pets, those positive, energizing thoughts. And how do we build resilience and those neurostructures in the brain? We need to tell ourselves every morning. So one tip before I finish, when you have chosen what your positive, energizing thought will be, one of the best ways in order to start to lay down really strong, resilient neurosynapses in the brain is to tell ourselves our energizing thought regularly. And so hook this new habit on the existing one. I challenge you now that every time you clean your teeth in the morning and in the evening, you say to yourself, obviously in your mind, because if we're cleaning our teeth, we can't speak out loud, but challenge yourself as you look yourself in the eye, in your mirror when you're cleaning your teeth, and say to yourself your positive, energizing thoughts so that your pet really does become ingrained. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be involved in today's book fair. Thank you very much. And thank you, Audrey, for inviting me as well. Back over to you, Elsa.
Great, thank you, Sharon. I always forgot I had to speak. I was thinking about what you said. Okay, great. So our next speaker is Heather Carr, and Heather is the Student Professional Development Manager and Wellbeing Champion at Brunel University, supporting students at critical times of life's transitions with the key message: it's not always what you know that makes you a success, but the inner strength of who you are. So I will hand over to Heather.
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction. And it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you all today. I'm just going to get straight on it and start, because echoing what our previous speakers have said, this is the time to start reflecting and thinking about you. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. So the topic of my talk today is qualifying your resilient health. So working at a university and as educators, we put a lot of emphasis on academic qualifications and what they mean and where they can take us in terms of our own futures and our professional development, and also our students. Because fundamentally what we're doing is starting to build upon the foundations of our future leaders. However, I think John put it perfectly earlier when he said, COVID-19 has made the world a real mess right now, and especially for education and what qualifications look like and our future working industry. So it's now the time to start thinking about and learning about what we've been through in this last year, simplifying those challenges and just making things a little bit easier for ourselves. So recruitment and roles, the job market, the qualifications, assessment patterns are all completely changing. This whole year has just been, well, it's just turned everything upside on its head. But qualifications aren't necessarily just assessments now. What we are finding is that leading businesses are now looking for a lot more. They're starting to actually recognize and qualify character building behaviors and competencies. So our future leaders, our students in higher education, need more than just their academic qualifications. For us as educators, it's our responsibility to keep reflecting upon ourselves, identifying what's happening in the markets and around us, being mindful and embedding that knowledge, embedding what we see into what we teach and into the curriculum. So what we need to do is start to build a new criteria with both academic and character resilience.
This one is another woman talking there. Zuma in London, she is giving the talk. Success story.
Sorry, just interruption with some feedback there. Okay, so moving on, just very, very quickly, I'm going to touch upon how we start to reassess and reflect upon what these new qualifications look like. So a report by Pearson and CBI in 2009 could not define what character resilience looked like. They did, however, keep coming up with the same 3 themes. And these 3 themes were what they reported as what makes students work ready. So it's skills and knowledge, we know that, but it's character. And also an important feature to note is the importance of continuous adult education. So that's not just only what we put into the curriculum, but it's also how we continue to learn ourselves and embed what we know and what we learn on a day-to-day basis back into what we teach. So my definition of continuous learning and is building a personal success story. However, that personal success story is always under construction. It's never finished. It's always building, and it's always expanding. So just to give you an understanding or a little insight into thinking about character strengths, these new sets of criteria for our future qualifications, including wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. So what does this mean for us now? Well, see, this is the exciting part. If we simplify and don't worry so much about all of the changes and how we can add these in, just take a few simple steps. So earlier, as Sharon was saying, is start to think about your own self and your own inner critic and thinking about your core values and what builds you up, what interests you, what motivates you, what keeps you positive, and what keeps you strong. So have a think about who it is that's your hero, or the person that inspires you, or the person that you find of great interest. Now, I've added in here, this is a tool from Audrey's book, The Leader's Guide to Resilience, which is a little tool to build your own character in chapter 2. So now that you've imagined your hero, what do they look like? What do they sound like? How do they appear to you? And start to build in and think about what these strengths and how these strengths are built into this character, into this ideal person or your inspiration. Once you've started to think about and break it down, you can start filling this in. But be honest with yourself. We are all here, we are all learning every single day. And just as a simple story of reflection, this whole year for me, transferring from physical events to physical classroom teaching, to meeting and seeing my colleagues on a day-to-day basis, they were my inspiration. My everyday inspiration was talking to people, meeting new people, and getting inspired by what they were saying and what they were doing. I completely lost that this year. And I went from having to adapt immediately to a virtual world. And do you know what? This entire year, I am okay with. It was on a theory of fail to win. And that's perfectly okay. Once I kind of had built into my system and started to recognize what I was good at again, I gained the confidence. And I actually used this tool myself to start building a little bit more confidence in myself so that I wasn't so stressed anymore, so that I didn't feel like a failure, because actually it's okay. So once you've started to fill this out and you started to really think about what traits, what positive things, what inspires you in this ideal character, it's then time to start doing it for yourself. And this is the exciting bit. This is the exciting bit. Knowing who you are, knowing your values, understanding what you're good at, being honest about your weaknesses, and being clear with an action point of where to move forward will start to give you, it will start to give you a stepping stone on how to build qualifications and criteria to support future leaders and your students. So this is how we continuously do it. It's not easy. It's not easy, because if it was, we would be doing it every day. Okay. So continuously building upon ourselves, fundamentally, will inspire our future leaders. It will inspire the future generations and building their foundations and their structure to be successful leaders in the future. So I just like to thank you. I'm going to finish there and just stop sharing my screen and pass you back to Elsa. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, so we all know attend events like these and we get fired up and then the event ends and all of the motivation goes. But the Leader's Guide to Resilience doesn't leave you hanging. The lessons are there, the toolkit is there, and underpinning it all, working as your own personal cheerleader to get you from I can be a success to actually doing it. Practical well-being and international speaker. Oh, can everyone hear me? Everyone froze. Can you all still hear me? Okay, great. Where her previous book, The Leader's Guide to Mindfulness, calmed you, with resilience, she is here to arm you. So you will not only survive crisis, but rebuild when exhausted and thrive beyond normal. So I'll hand over to Audrey.
Thank you, Elsa, and thank you to all the amazing speakers. And Terima kasih, thank you for having me as well. Now, as everybody has said, change is hard. It is difficult. The tools are simple. The tools are actually themselves very easy, but doing them every single day, making that commitment to our mental health and mental well-being, that's the hard part. But nothing is as hard as staying where you do not want to be. The WHO, the World Health Organization, defines mental health as a state of well-being where an individual realizes his or her own abilities, can buffer the stresses of normal everyday life, and can contribute well to his or her community. And you may indeed pick up the Leader's Guide to Resilience, thinking, I need to buffer my stress. I need to try and contribute to my community. I need to get a handle on my mental well-being. And I will give you the tools to do that. But within this book as well, you get my pledge to mental health as something to work for, to nurture, to strive for, and to commit to every single day, because mental health is not the absence of stress, of mental suffering, of mental illness. Mental health is the presence of wellness. It is our ability to choose happiness and positivity and strength every single day. So what if you could choose a state of mental well-being, and not only that, nurture it in others, role model it to the students, to your teams, to your clients, to your children? What if you could finally recognize that the hedonistic treadmill, very much like that third bowl of ice cream, is not actually nurturing you or nourishing you, and is actually making you feel a little bit sick, even though you thought you wanted it in the first place? And instead, you choose something more nourishing instead. And what if you could be that ideal person, that hero, who can choose joy, choose happiness, choose love, choose strength, and through that, you are successful. Through that, you are winning at life. That's resilience. That's mental health. And that, at least to me, is success. Now, you've been given a lot of tools in today's session, and I will give you a few more. And the reason why we focus on practical tools is simply because stress in the 21st century is not the same as it was before. The threat is no longer physical. No longer are we running away from the predators in the jungle, but we're worrying about whether our friend got a promotion instead of us. No longer are we avoiding the poison berries that might be seated somewhere disguising themselves as lovely food, but we're worrying about our toxic relationships. And no longer are we exhausted from running because we're fearing something that's going to chase us, but we're actually exhausted from the in tray that keeps piling up and never seeming to end. So in the 21st century, the tools that you need are not always physical, but they are about building our psychological strength, building our emotional fortitude, building our mental fitness. And like any muscle, we need to keep practicing them daily in order to keep that strength going. So today I'm going to give you some of those tools, and I'm going to start with one of them, which I learned from, you've heard her, the award-winning Sharon Lawton. And this is to really work on what it is you want to focus on. Have a goal. If you do not know what you're looking for, how will you know you've achieved it? So I want you to draw out a circle and divide it into 8 different segments. You don't need to be great at art, as you can see. You're going to use each of those segments, but have your goal clear in your mind. Write that goal out. But in each of those 8 different segments, I want you to write down one thing that will help you reach that goal. So let's imagine your goal is, I want to have a life of mental health and well-being. So let's just have mental health as our goal. Well, what are the things that are going to help you in here? Number 1, it might be, as every one of these speakers has said, positive, healthy relationships. It might be our relationships. Number 2, it might be career success. That's okay. That's something that gives us achievement and meaning. Number 3 might be travel, even though we can't do that just yet, but it might be something we're passionate about. It might be our hobbies. You will have different things that together make up your mental wellness. So write those things down, but then it gets very clever, because then you have to give yourself a visual representation. You have to say, on a scale of 0 in here to 10 out there, where am I on each of those segments? Have I really been spending time with the healthy people? Have I really been building my positive energizers, or have I actually been letting those ants, those automatic negative thoughts take over the whole time? Am I actually 9 or 10, or am I about a 2 or 3 at the moment? Make a mark where you are. Your career. Maybe you've loved working from home. Maybe you've been building your career really well because you've started a new business. Maybe you are 7 or 8 in that career. Brilliant. Mark it off. Travel. Well, I know I'm missing that dreadfully. So I'm about a 0 or a 1 right now. Traveling to my local supermarket is not doing it for me. Hobbies. I'm engaging in those a little bit more, so maybe 3 or 4. But the reason we mark it off in that way is because we can then see, we have a visual representation of how balanced or imbalanced we are in achieving our goal of mental health or mental wellness. And by using this tool, using where we are, you might look at it and say, oh, actually, I'm doing all right with my career. I'm about 9 or 10 there. I'm going to work on my relationships. And then simply, all you do is every single day, you just choose one thing that will push that up one more notch. You don't need to make a 3 a 10 immediately, but just push it up one more notch. That is one way of making a commitment to your mental wellness. So first of all, know your goal. First of all, know your goal. Tool number 2, when we know our goal, we actually need to be able to have the time to achieve it. But we all know there are so many demands of everyday life. So try this wonderful little quadrant. Draw a cross on your page. And what you have is you have tasks that are important and urgent. Then you have tasks that are important, but they're not urgent. Then you might have tasks that are urgent, but not important that you do it. And then finally, you have tasks that are simply not important and not urgent, like scrolling through social media and getting upset about what you might see. So divide all of your thoughts, all of your priorities, all of the things you're doing in these different segments. Urgent and important. Simple answer. Do it. Do it. That's it. Just get it done. That's your priority. And those will probably meet the criteria on the mental health wheel, on the goal wheel I've just shown you. But this is where it gets more fun. You might have tasks that are important for you to do, but they're not urgent. That might be, maybe you haven't seen people for a long time. You do need to go and see them. It is really important you do it, but maybe you've got a deadline coming up. You don't need to do it just now. Well, then simply delay them. Delay it. Delay it. You don't have to do it. You can say, I don't have time right now, but I can do it tomorrow, or I can do it on Saturday. And then because you're not worrying about all of the things that, oh my goodness, I should be doing that as well, you can actually enjoy doing that thing at that later point. So you've built a little bit of time. You've got some time back. Now, how about these tasks that are not important that you do it, but they're urgent? And I've got a few of those. Someone's got to walk my dog and someone's got to cook dinner. Someone's got to load the dishwasher. Someone's got to pick the children up from school, that sort of thing. Well, if they're urgent and they have to be done, but it's not necessarily important that you do it, delegate. Delegate. We forget that actually our team is also our family. We think about teams and we think about work, but one of our closest and largest supporters are the people who live with us. And that, if we can work as a team, delegate those tasks, because not only does it show that you trust them, but they can be empowering, especially if you're delegating what are important tasks, but not important that you do them, to younger ones. They might feel a lot of pride in being able to be trusted to stack the dishwasher, or go and walk the dog around the park, or whatever that might be. So anything urgent but not important you do it, delegate it. And this one is my absolute favorite. If it's not important and not urgent, and yet it's taking up all of our time, remember, psychological stress, 21st century stress, delete it. Get rid of it. Delete it. If you catch yourself scrolling through social media, if you catch yourself worrying about things that maybe you cannot do anything about, get rid of those tasks. And one of the best ways of actually getting rid of a task is by filling that gap with something more productive instead. So that might be a substitution such as, I might walk on the spot for 5 minutes just to get myself away from my phone. I might go out, take a few breaths of fresh air. I might have that drink of water. I might go to the toilet because I need to. That's what you do when you've deleted the tasks that are not important to you. And by doing this, you will find you will get a lot more time back. And not only that, but you will be focusing on the things that are most important to you. So you've got your goal, and then use this tool, the do, delay, delegate, delete tool, to actually decide on how to prioritize your time. Now, these two are cognitive tools. They are practical tools. They are things that we will do. You'll go away after the session and maybe think, yeah, I really like that, I'm going to do it. And then it will get to Monday, Tuesday, and that dedication, that will begin to wear off. Because our commitment to mental health can be a little bit like our commitment to physical health. I mean to go out for a run. I will go out for a run for 3 days, and then on day 4, I'll press my alarm and stay in bed a little bit longer. So these next two tools are the ones that help you keep going. And these really relate to what all the speakers have said. They relate to who we surround ourselves with. The more energizing we have within our own situation, within our own community, the more likely we are to actually do what we said we're going to do, because we feel fired up. So this is how you surround yourself with energizing people, with people who will inspire you. And yes, maybe they do inspire you to take a swim, or maybe they inspire you to write a book. I am blessed with everyone, you've seen them, who will do both. So draw yourself a little cup. It's a cup of tea or coffee. And I think about tea and coffee because it's warming. It makes me feel good. I can sit down and relax. And you can have maybe 2 or 3 cups. But what I want you to do, and this is very much like the tool that Heather gave you, think about the people who you would like to have coffee or tea with. Who would you like to spend time with? Is it because they have certain character strengths that you like? Is it because they have certain values that you like? Note those people down and write down what their character strengths or their values that you appreciate are. Maybe they are humorous. Maybe they make you laugh. So maybe it's humor. Maybe it's passion. Maybe it's simply championing you. They just make you feel good. So we'll do a little smiley face there. Do that for, say, 3 people that you want to have a cup of tea with or a cup of coffee with. Recognize their values. And then you work to live those values every single day. So it's not just about saying, oh, this is lovely, these are my friends, these are the people I want to spend time with. But in order to have people that have those values, you yourself need to be demonstrating them. You yourself need to be living them. If you want humor, show humor to others. If you want kindness, show kindness to others. Those are the values you recognize. Those are the values I want you to focus on. But along with that, I do want you to do something else. When you've got those friends that are important to you in your life, that are meaningful, tell them, remind them, say why they're so important. Because we don't say this often enough. We assume people know that they're important to us, but especially now, when we haven't had as much of a chance to talk to each other, when we haven't had as much of a chance to see each other and get that feeling of love that you get when you're face to face with the person that you really enjoy spending time with. You need to go that extra mile. Just go that little way forward and tell them, whether it's a simple text, whether it's a little message, whether it's an email, or even a handwritten card or note. That's a lovely thing to do. So it's something, tell them, something that will just remind them, you know what, you made a difference in my life, and that's amazing. And I'll tell you right now, it works, because every single one of those speakers who have been so, so kind, I am absolutely glowing. I'm buzzing, and it's beautiful, and I'm so grateful to them. So that's how to create a tribe around you that really matches your vibe. But here's another one to energize you personally. And this is the yin yang. Now, I know most of us, and I'm not an artist, and I apologize for this. So the yin yang is balance. It represents balance. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about the things that energize you and the things that relax you. And the things that relax you come under the yin. And the things that energize you come under the yang. The reason why I want you to think about these two things is because we don't often know what is meant by the phrase self-care. You hear it a lot. You hear, you must look after yourself. But actually, for some people, that might be a massage. For other people, it might be a good night's sleep. For other people, it might be putting on your best outfit, going out and having a really great night out. It's different for every single person. So what you need to do is recognize what works for you, except where it's also important is work out whether it's something that energizes you or whether it's something that relaxes you. Why? Because we have two states of mental suffering that we need to deal with. Apathy, verging on depression and sadness, and anxiety, which is where our heart rate's going, we're feeling stressed, we're feeling overwhelmed. And if we're in the anxious state, something that energizes us further is probably not going to work quite so well. If we're in the apathetic state, in the sad state, something that relaxes us further may not be quite so effective. So have a think about what energizes you. It might be things like learning a course or reading a book or going out for a walk or listening to a podcast. Think about the things that relax you. That might be having a bubble bath. That might be going for a spa. That might be chatting with a friend and just being able to sit and talk. It might be watching reruns of something that you've seen a lot of times on television, but just because it makes you comfortable. Recognize what they are, note them down, and then when you need a relaxer because you're feeling overwhelmed, go to that straight away. You will have that list of things that relax you. When you need an energizer because you're feeling sad and down, go to the list that energize you, and then you will bring yourself back into balance. When you've brought yourself back into balance, those commitments, the goal wheel, the being able to do, delete, delay, delegate, all of that becomes easier. When you are in balance, being able to change your automatic negative thoughts into positive, energizing thoughts, that becomes easier. When you are in balance, finding and creating a place simply to be becomes easier. And when you're in balance, seeing the people who inspire you, building the ideal you that you want to be, and focusing on your character, that becomes easier too. So these two tips are about our emotional fitness. Our first two are about clearing the headspace. These two are about emotional fitness. Surround yourself with the people that you love and know what makes you feel great because it energizes you or relaxes you. But the third set of tips, these are about being you. These are about recognizing and appreciating that especially in times like this, who you are far outweighs what you have and what your titles are and what you know. Who you are wins through. And this is how you can start to reconnect with who you are. And so this is the vitals exercise. You write vitals down the side, V-I-T-A-L-S. And the V stands for your values. What are your values? What is important to you? Have 3 values written down. 3 key values. I stands for interests. Now, with our values, that's very much like our cup of coffee or cup of tea. Work to live those every single day, even if you only just manage to make one of them. But our interests, that's something that as adults, we tend to forget. We maybe used to love playing the piano, or we used to love art, or we used to love running, and we just don't have time for it anymore. Try and make time for it. When you've delegated or deleted some of those tasks, make time for something because it interests you, you care about it. That will energize you. That will make you more likely to make all those changes that you may wish to make in order to have that mental wellness. But one little caveat when you are revisiting something that interests you before, you do not need to be perfect at it. If you haven't played the piano for 20 years, you do not need to be playing Beethoven's Fifth perfectly. You simply need to be able to play a tune to make you feel good. T is temperament. Now, to break this one down, you might be a fast thinker or a slow thinker. Now, a fast thinker, you like making decisions straight away, you like things done now, you like moving on to the next thing and then getting excited about stuff, or you might need to process things. You might need to stop, you might need to wait, you might need to say, hang on a minute, I want to look at all of the information. Now, either way, whatever your natural type of temperament and thought process is, you can do the other one. And you might find yourself in a job where you like to think very quickly, but actually you have to be patient. You have to slow it down. You have to wait. You have to hold back. Now, that's fine because we are complex, wonderful human beings. We can do both. We can do what suits us and we can do what's expected of us. But if we are doing what is expected of us too much and don't have the chance to have the outlet of what simply suits us, that's leading to burnout. That leads to stress. So if you, like me, I'm quite a fast thinker. I like to do exciting things very, very quickly, but my job is coaching. It is training. It is being patient with people. And I do it because it's part of my profession. I then find things to do that excite me, that I think quickly over. And one of the things I like doing is simply doing things like escape rooms and puzzles with my husband. So find something that gives you that outlet. Know what your temperament is, find something that gives you the outlet. Similar to that, around the clock. Now, this looks at whether you are a morning person or an evening person. This looks at whether you are an early bird and you make the most of the early hours in the day, you're feeling your most refreshed then, or whether you like working longer into the night. Again, we will have something that suits us, very much like temperament. And if you realize that you are an early bird, but maybe people in your household, your family team are night owls, or maybe the people you work with are night owls, or maybe you're on shift work, then there are things that you can do in order to try and make that gap that little bit less pronounced. So if, for example, you like to get up early, but your family like to just stay up late into the night, the best time to have serious or meaningful discussions with them will not be first thing in the morning, because although you're feeling great, they're probably quite tired. And it won't be last thing at night, because although they're happy to have a chat last thing at night, you may be half asleep. You can already see a great time, a better time to have important discussions will be in the middle of the day. So have a think about how you can negotiate what will work best for all of you. Similarly, if you are on shift work and you are an early bird, but you work better during the day or when you've just got up, then maybe there are things you need to do in order to make yourself feel better working into the night. And that might be shifting your body clock. So that means think about your environment. Think about how restful your bedroom is. Think about how easy it is to retain that sense of darkness whilst you're there. Our physical environment, exactly as John said earlier, can play a huge role in how we feel. But the best thing about some of our physical environments, such as our bedrooms or our workspaces, we can actually control those and manage those. So manage what you can. L is life goals. Remember what is important to you and what is meaningful to you. And that might be something that isn't necessarily recognized by other people. So here's my question to you. Think about an achievement that you did in the past, something that you were really proud of, but think about why you were proud of it. So for me, one of the things I talk about is I did, when I was very young, the swimming thing where you dive to the bottom of the pool and you rescue a brick, because that's what you do for one of your badges in swimming. Now, what was important to me was not the fact that I did it and got the ribbon for it, but simply the fact that I did it. I'm not a strong swimmer. I actually failed it twice before I managed to get it, but then I got it. For me, a life goal is perseverance, not necessarily the certificate at the end. And by recognizing that, it begins to dawn on me why I enjoy training, why I enjoy teaching, why I enjoy writing. Because through that, I see people persevere and grow. So work out what your life goals are and introduce them into everything that you do. Because if you can find meaning in what you do or make it meaningful, you will be more engaged with it, you will be more energized by it. And that is another way to buffer the stresses of 21st century living. And finally, this is something that Heather mentioned, our strengths. Know what they are, be proud of them, recognize them, and try and use them every single day. Maybe one of your strengths is being creative, but you don't get much opportunity to do that in your work. Well, first of all, can you introduce it into your work? Or second of all, can you simply find ways of being creative elsewhere? Maybe wearing something creative, maybe creating a lovely window box so you can look at it. Those are different ways of engaging with your strengths. Because if we don't engage with what we're really good at and what we know we're really good at, we begin to feel like we're losing part of who we authentically are. The reason why the acronym VITALS is used is because these elements are as important to our mental fitness as food and water and exercise are to our physical fitness. So live your vitals every single day. And the very last of the tools, and this is my favorite energizer that I always do, I'm going to ask you to do this with me. I can't see you, so don't worry if you're not doing it, but it's a very simple stretch. You've all been sitting down for a while and I'm grateful to you, but just stretch your arms out, get yourself sort of feeling a little bit looser, and think about one thing in your room right now that you are so grateful to have, that you love. Just have a look round and just be grateful, because this keeps us focused in the present right now. It grounds us and we think, yeah, I've got that, and that's great. Now, roll your shoulders back, shake out a little bit, and think about one thing you are looking forward to doing today. One thing you are looking forward to doing today. And the reason I ask you to think about gratitude is not just because it does reconnect some of the pathways in our brain and releases endorphins and makes us feel good, but it allows us to live in the present rather than panicking about the future or regretting or resenting things that might have happened in the past. Why? Because the present is the only time that we can guarantee we've got in order to create a future that we want to live. So, if you can, today, in the present, right now, make that commitment to your mental health. To try any one of the tools that I've suggested, that the speakers suggested, any one that works for you. Use it, try it, commit to it every single day. Then, very much like the landscapes that John creates, in creating and cultivating our place to be, because this is the only place we've got until we leave it. You plant that seed of health. You nurture it. You commit to it. You speak kindly to it, and you are patient with it. And that is how not only do we build our resilience, we build our mental wellness, but we get ready to grow. Thank you all so much for all of your amazing attention, time, commitment. We are now here to answer any questions, and thank you especially to Keith and the University Bookstore Malaysia for hosting such a wonderful event. It's been absolutely our pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, those of you who would like to ask any questions, you can just unmute yourself and just shoot. You can actually direct the question to any one of the speakers, or Audrey will play host for all the questions that we'll ask. So please go ahead. Just ask anything you want to. I think all the people that is tuning in on Zoom are academics. They are super smart anyway.
Yeah, are they? Yes. And as every academic, just use what works for you. Never think, oh my goodness, I have to do everything. I mean, you've got to this stage without our help, right? You're doing fine as you are. These are just things like a pick and mix. If it works for you, use it. If it doesn't, maybe pin it and use it some other time.
Okay.
But you can ask questions to me or to any of the speakers at all. Everyone is very happy to answer anything should you wish.
Anyone?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely comment. Thank you. The practical tools are something that all of the speakers are, it's very dear to their hearts, because one thing that all of us have recognized is that there's a lot of experts out there giving tips. There's a lot of people out there saying, well, you just need to dump the toxic people in your life, or, well, you just need to relax. And actually, all of the speakers commit to giving you ways to do that, giving you help to do that. Because it's not just about saying it, it's about being able to guide you and help you in order to make those changes.
Yeah, somebody asked, what about specific case? I mean, the talk and the sharing is pretty generalized, but there may be a specific case of a specific child or specific teacher and so on and so forth. So do they need to seek professional help one-on-one or kind of a group therapy?
Well, it actually depends what works for the individual. Because if you have somebody who, so all of us, Sharon and I in particular, and actually Heather as well, we do coach individuals. And in an individual session, we would say use one of the main tools, but we would tweak it to suit that particular person based on their background, what we know of them, how our rapport is with them. So there's two things that are important to remember. One is, yes, if you feel you want that individual tailored support, then seek that professional help. And none of these tools are there as an alternative. They are there to complement professional support. But secondly, it's so important to have a rapport with the person you're working with. And actually, if that's not there, it's okay to choose somebody else, because this is all about your own growth. And it's all about you feeling comfortable taking quite difficult. Just make sure that you build a rapport with the person you're with, and don't be afraid of finding someone different if it's not working for you, because your mental well-being, it's you wouldn't stay with a fitness trainer, a personal trainer, if you didn't like them. It's the same thing with coaching or counseling. Doesn't work, then you need to find somebody that you connect with. But what I know Sharon, Heather and I would always do is we would tweak the tools. The standard tools are there, but we would always tweak them to suit your particular needs.
I think why this session is particularly important to me and very close to my heart is that sometimes at the leadership level, who does the leader turn to? You see, like over this pandemic, I have several education leaders, from principals who are super fit mentally and physically. It's like a rugby coach, cyclist coach, as well as the school master counselor. But they themselves died of stress at a very young age because of the sudden change. You see, their CEOs of education group also die of stress because the kind of new challenges that they're going to face and doing new things that nobody has ever done before. All right. And we have been experiencing quite a number of cases like this where senior leaders in the education institutions or education group just passed away. Of course, the easiest explanation is a heart attack. But there are a lot of stuff, especially stress, that leads up to heart attack, you see. So where do the leaders turn to? Will they get inspiration or solutions from the book that you have written specifically for the leaders?
There will be tools that you can use, but if you are really suffering with, and you need more specialist help, then you do need to reach out and seek professional counselling. But certainly, for example, at Brunel University, where Heather works, they have wellbeing champions there. They have staff who are trained as mental health first aiders that can support staff as well. I know Sharon also gives training to leaders, to parents, in order to better support their children, their clients, their students. And one of the most important things I would say is sometimes if you are a leader and you are needing support, that's where you don't actually go to your family team, because we often go to our loved ones and we talk about our problems, and two things happen there. One is our loved ones maybe don't know the actual situation that we're going through, and so aren't quite able to give us the support we need, but also they really want us to be okay. So they tend to say things like, oh, just leave, or just don't do, and we perhaps don't want that as the solution. We want to be able to work through it, talk through it, find a solution, maybe from someone who's been through it before. So sometimes looking for other leaders or other managers, just by you reaching out to that person and saying, hey, look, this is what's going on. How have you dealt with it before? You've not only made a potential network connection there, but actually also you might have given somebody else an opportunity to say, oh my goodness, are you experiencing it as well? Oh gosh, I didn't realize. I mean, even in planning this particular event, Keith and I have been talking, and in that we've been able to learn from each other and recognize that we're all going through something similar. That's the same thing with Elsa, Heather, Sharon and John as well. In talking about things, we've suddenly all said, oh my goodness, you're doing that too. You're seeing this as well. And through that, you can find a group solution. So find peers, find colleagues, find other people who understand the technicals of your work. They might also be able to help you.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a good question, actually. How do we speak about mental well-being to a colleague? I would actually probably throw that to Heather or to Sharon if they can answer that the best, because they work in the situations. I tend to get brought in, so it's a slightly different thing. I mean, I would just say find a moment and go to a coffee shop and do that. But if I can either ask Sharon or Heather perhaps to yeah, Sharon, if you don't mind taking that one, that would be lovely, please.
I was just about to pass over to Heather, actually. I think the most important thing from my perspective is that we need to have those conversations, and often what we do is we shy away from them. Talking about well-being and mental health in a way that is open allows people to not be, for it not to be a stigma. So for me, when I do training on all of this, it sort of goes right back to the culture within the company or the environment that we're in. So often there are lots of what we call negative words sort of around when we're talking about mental well-being. So and then when we use those negative words, even without realizing, it can shut down the conversation. So for me, it's more around ensuring that we have that open door policy, that we talk about in a natural and normal way. Just like if somebody broke their leg or broke their arm, we wouldn't feel sort of embarrassed to sort of address that broken arm or broken leg. But it's almost like, we see if we're struggling and our stress bucket is overflowing, that it's a weakness to take some time away. Or to top ourselves up by, sort of taking some time off or speaking to somebody and saying, you know what, I'm really struggling at the moment. That for me, that's a sign of strength to say, I need some help, as opposed to a sign of weakness. So we need, it needs to be on a company cultural level, that it's okay to talk about this stuff. And actually it's not weakness to ask for help, it's a sign of strength. So yeah, Heather, I'd pass over to you as well to see if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've just popped it in the chat. We are not alone in this situation. Sharing is caring, and just as much as we would share professional good practice with our colleagues, and have those conversations, sharing our experiences is just as important. So at Brunel, within our staff well-being structure, we've now started all of the well-being champions, of which I volunteer to be within the organisation for staff. We're now having weekly Zoom coffee catch-ups. We're now starting to have a topic or a theme of which to encourage people to come to these coffee meetings to just discuss what's on their mind. Because as soon as you start talking about what's on your mind, you quickly find that you can find a solution. Sorry, just going through the chat quickly.
To sort of add to that, is using that sort of empathy. I think that's really important as well. Sort of using empathy in our language. So that makes a big difference. So it looks as though you're struggling at the moment, or I might be wrong, but what I'm hearing is, so using all of that, and the sort of tip to ask people twice, how are you? Mm-hmm. How are you really? Yeah. And to share and be open ourselves. And I think if we model that, which is what I spoke about, if we model it, we're more likely to get it reflected back. If we're putting on this, I can cope with everything, actually it's going to make it very difficult for people who are struggling to come to us and be open. So we need to sort of model good resilience and openness.
Really nice questions as well. It is things like, how do you embed this into a community where the community perhaps doesn't trust the idea of mental health, and that is where community leaders do play a huge part, because exactly as Sharon, you were saying about role modeling, it is so important to be that person. You can't just tell people, oh, you need to look after your mental health, if you're seen to be working all hours or seen to be doing things that aren't quite mentally healthy. And also, whilst we believe that mental health has a taboo, I believe sadly it was mental illness that has the taboo. But the more we speak about stress, depression, anxiety, the less taboo that becomes, the less of a stigma that has. And actually mental health, mental wellness is something to be proud of and to reclaim. And that's part of what I want to do, and I know what the speakers are doing. It's just reclaiming the idea that we can be mentally well and be proud of it.
I think there's another question about how to speak about mental health in cultures where it's not recognized. You know, the thing is that the first world, third world, and then people who are exposed to mental health and in certain society, as you said, it may be saying that this person may be crazy or something like that. But how do you actually say that? And sometimes how does religion explain it? Like say they go to a pastor or go to an imam or something like that. Can you share more about this?
Well, yeah, the first thing is if you want people to commit to practices which they maybe don't trust or haven't used before, such as coaches, counselors, mental well-being practitioners, then it is the community leaders that need to show it in the first instance. However, one thing I would say is in cross-cultural research, it has actually been shown that even if you have a very good practitioner, psychologist, a psychiatrist doing the work, sometimes you need to introduce elements of the other culture that remain firm. So, for example, one of the things, if it's a belief in spirits or a belief in religion, it can help sometimes to have the spiritualist or the spiritual leader giving some of the similar tools. And you'll actually find, whether you call it psychology, whether you call it religion, whether you call it coaching, whether you call it the spiritual law of attraction, we're all saying the same thing. So sometimes it can be actually was where I say the person that you connect with and the person that you listen to. Everyone will say it's about choosing the state. Everyone will say it's about focus, about where you put your mind, and so on. So sometimes it's about introducing the two elements and blending them together, or realizing that no matter what the package is, we're all actually saying the same thing.
Thank you very much for sharing. I think due to time factor, we have to close the session. We'll have a word of advice from each of our speakers. Just give us a line of advice, starting with John.
Thank you. Yeah, I would reaffirm what I said about finding a place to just be. I think it's important. We spend so much time in our 300-mile-an-hour lives that we just need to slow down. And as I said in my intro, doing nothing is doing something. And I think that the more that we tell people that, and that there's nothing wrong with just sitting back and closing your eyes and enjoying what's around you, I think it's very important. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, John. Sharon.
Thank you. I would close with saying there's a fantastic saying which goes something along the lines of be the change you want to see. So certainly for me, I'm all about empowerment. So, model to our communities, model in our workplaces, model in our places of education, and model to our young children. And if we model to our young people, actually, they are going to grow up to be resilient adults. And it starts with us.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate, really, the power of believing in yourself and recognizing your strengths and knowing that it's okay to fail, because you can always try again.
Thank you. And finally, Audrey, closing remark.
Change is hard and change takes time. But in the same way as we don't plant a seed and yell at it, grow, I want you to grow now. I want you to be patient with yourselves. Speak kindly to yourselves, nurture yourselves, and you will flourish.
Thank you, Audrey. What we're going to do is that we're going to close the session, but what I'm going to do is that I'll share screen. For those of you who are interested, you may actually purchase the book. It's supposed to be launched only next week, right? But Malaysians get the first in the world to get a hand on this book. And it's actually available on our KL International Book Fair site. I will share the QR code with you shortly after this session. For a minute or two, you can actually take a screenshot or use your camera to hover it over it, and you'll be the first in the world to get a copy. Okay, so Thanks, everyone. Let me share the screen. Yep. Okay. Okay, here you go. You can actually just scan to purchase. You can scan to register yourself if you actually want a copy of the, a certificate. So thanks everyone. I will actually end the session in a minute's time. So thank you so much to the organizer, to the KL International Book Fair Committee. Encik Nizam, do you want to say anything?
Okay, Kit Tong. For me, thanks to everyone to join us for today. That's all, Kit Tong. So have a nice day.
Okay, everyone. Thank you. Take care of yourself and have a fantastic weekend, whatever that's left. Okay, and a very happy and blessed Easter to those of you who celebrate Easter. Okay, so enjoy yourselves and tune in for more exciting talks in the very, very near future. Thank you. Have a blessed Sunday. Thank you. Bye-bye.